China's military expansion in the South China Sea, development of advanced military technologies, along with the treatment of ethnic minorities in Xinjiang was already causing trouble in the U.S. ranks, but something happened that has strained the already tense relationship shared by the two powers. Something that has sent shockwaves through the globe. The downing of the Chinese surveillance spy balloon adds to the cycle of provocative actions the two superpowers are finding hard to break. But before we step into the growing debacle, we want to take you back to how it all started. The Chinese balloon that floated over the U.S. airspace has sparked significant controversy throughout the globe. The U.S. claims that the balloon was a spy balloon, while China maintains that it was a civilian scientific research balloon that had strayed off course. Now, to put things into perspective, the U.S. holds its stance that anything violating its airspace will be dealt with, and that's exactly what happened. The hovering spy balloon was shot down by a U.S. fighter jet, and this action provoked a response that would go down in the history books forever. Let us show you how. For the first time in over a decade, a U.S. representative was set to visit Beijing to discuss trade and the Taiwan issue, and it felt like the tensions would be discussed over the table. To put it all into perspective, the two superpowers had been competing for superiority, and sometimes this superiority has aggravated and even threatened to spark a new Cold War. But a statement given out by the U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken has sparked a new debacle. According to Blinken, the presence of a surveillance balloon over the U.S. airspace was a clear violation of international law and a breach of sovereignty. Moreover, this statement was reiterated by Republicans as well as Democrats, and for a while, it seemed like President Biden might have got some support on his back. Whereas, on the other hand, Chinese officials have not gone so far as to accuse the U.S. of violating international law by shooting down the balloon. They have rather accused the U.S. of overreacting to the situation. But the million-dollar question is the U.S. reaction to China's spy balloon overdue or overblown? And will there be a response from Beijing? The U.S. called it a spy balloon sniffing on sensitive military sites and shot it down. China said it was a weather device blown off course and accused Washington of overreacting. Whichever it was, the giant, mysterious orb that hovered over Montana for days has set off a diplomatic row, and the U.S. military works to recover the remnants of the Chinese vessel off the coast of South Carolina after it was downed. But the wreckage could hold the answer to a question at the center of the controversy. What was the balloon for? It's much more than hot air. Now, there are two angles for this question. Firstly, as the U.S. asserts, the balloon was not there for a civilian operation, and it was hovering over a nuclear-sensitive site. And on the other side, Beijing maintains its stance that the down balloon was nothing more than an air balloon carrying out some civilian research, and it had gone far off course. What happens to the world's most important bilateral relationship now? Inevitably, social media has picked up on the story, amplifying conspiracy theories and providing a platform for those who wish to criticize the current U.S. administration. The furor created a largely uninformed feeding frenzy, and what can best be described as a lot of hot air. This can obviously have adverse consequences for the region, especially after the cancellation of Antony Blinken's visit to China. Ultimately, Blinken announced on February 3rd that he was postponing his trip, which would have been the first by a U.S. Secretary of State in 5 years. Enthusiasm for the first trip by an American Secretary of State to China in nearly 5 years, a visit both sides pitched as a way to help reset ties, has been punctured significantly. Just a few days back, expectations for the meeting were modest, yet just the fact that talks were taking place was reason for optimism after years of limited engagement and strains over everything from trade to security and technology. But now that the visit has been canceled and both nations have maintained their hardline stances, what if we see another paradigm shift? What if the downed spy balloon provokes a response from Beijing? The answers to these questions are what most people are looking for. Amid a low point in the relationship, the balloon incident injects more mistrust and damages the opportunity to resume regular dialogue. For Beijing, the political, diplomatic, and even reputational costs of this incident are high, raising questions about why China's top leader would have gambled the chance to lower tensions with the United States for low-value intelligence. No doubt there are multiple explanations for the presence of the balloon into the U.S. airspace. The balloon could have gone astray, as Chinese officials are stressing, and on the other hand, it might have been carrying some low-level intelligence activity. But why would the Chinese leader risk better relations with the U.S. for just some low-level intelligence operation? The balloon appears to be linked to China's Strategic Support Force, or SSF, responsible for strategic space, cyber, and electronic warfare missions for China's military. Some reports suggest the SSF has a program to position reconnaissance balloons to conduct continuous surveillance at fixed points, And furthermore, this might have been a deliberate intervention based on some inner Chinese politics. Blinken's trip to Beijing was never meant to be a total reset in relations, but could have been part of a confidence-building process steering relations to a more manageable position. With a lack of regular communication and dialogue, the balloon incident risks further destabilization in an already tense situation. Above all, this latest development reveals how fragile bilateral ties remain. Rescheduling Blinken's visit will hardly repair the relationship between the United States and China, but in an era of mutual mistrust, it would demonstrate to the world that diplomacy can and will be used to manage the bilateral relationship responsibly. A rescheduled visit would also provide an opportunity for America to rethink how it can use all the tools in our toolkit, including diplomacy, to manage our relationship with China before the next crisis occurs. Amid growing tensions between the two superpowers, all eyes remain on what happens next. This incident goes a long way in demonstrating that mistrust between the United States and China is likely here to stay. The relatively conciliatory tone in the lead-up to Blinken's visit does not outweigh the United States' signals of deep mistrust toward China's intentions on issues large and small. On the eve of Blinken's visit, the United States struck a deal with the Philippines to establish 4 new military bases. These bases are well positioned to monitor Chinese military operations in the South China Sea and the waters around Taiwan. Beyond the Pacific, China's refusal to condemn Russia's invasion of Ukraine has cast a long shadow over the prospect of meaningful cooperation. China's domestic practices are also sticking points in the relationship. Its crackdown on democratic freedoms in Hong Kong, hardline campaigns against the Uyghurs and other ethnic minorities, and the Chinese Communist Party's claim of sovereignty over Taiwan, and repeated attempts to push the boundaries and norms around the contested island, is all leading towards a troubling relationship with Washington. Although the balloon incident was certainly one of the more unexpected crises U.S.-China relations have faced in recent years, crises are not unfamiliar to the two sides. Until now, U.S. and Chinese leadership may not get along, but establishing how the two countries choose to handle their disagreements will define the next phase of the relationship. What do you guys think about the spy balloon debacle? Will it have an adverse consequence for the future, or will Anthony Blinken make his long-awaited visit to Beijing? Let us know in the comments section below. Make sure you press the like button, and if you do like watching content related to political shifts throughout the globe, make sure you press that subscribe button.